Alright, today's lesson is going to be on graphing quadratic equations. To do this, I'm going to use the factored form to find the roots, and then I'm also going to find the vertex, and then by graphing the roots and the vertex, I'm going to plot those points and connect them with the parabola, hence graphing the quadratic equation. There are other ways to graph quadratics, but this is the method that I'm going to use for this video. For the first example, I'm going to use the equation y equals x squared minus 4x minus 5. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to find the vertex. In order to find the vertex, I'm going to use the formula h equals negative b divided by 2a. The h that I'm talking about here comes from the vertex point being called h comma k, and the b and a comes from standard form of y equals ax squared plus b times x plus c. So in this case, my b is a negative 4 and my a is a 1. So negative 4 would become a positive 4 divided by 2 times 1, which would be 4 divided by 2, which is just 2. So now that I have the h value of my vertex, I can go ahead and look for the k value. To find k, all I'm going to do is I'm going to plug the h value in to the original equation. So I have an x squared, so instead of putting x there, I'm going to put a 2 because that's my h value. So it'll be 2 squared minus 4 times, instead of putting an x there, I'm going to put a 2 there again, because 2 is the h value, and then minus 5. So 2 squared is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, and then minus 5. So 4 minus 8 is negative 4, minus 5 would give us negative 9. So the vertex would be at 2, negative 9. Now, all we need is the vertex and the roots in order to graph. I am going to do one additional step, which is write this into vertex form. And just as a reminder, vertex form is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So for this equation, my a value is 1, so I would have y equals 1, but I don't need to write the 1. So I'm just going to put the parentheses x minus h. H is 2, so I'm going to just have x minus 2 squared. And then it says plus k, but since k is negative 9, I could do plus negative 9 or just minus 9. So that would be my vertex form. So now that I have the vertex and vertex form, I'm going to go back to the original equation and I'm going to factor it in order to find the roots of the parabola. So again, our original equation was y equals x squared minus 4x minus 5. So to put this into factored form, which is y equals a times x minus the first root times the quantity of x minus the second root. So since my a is 1, I know I don't need any number out in front of my parentheses, and I'm going to have x times something, or x plus something, or minus something, times another x plus or minus something. What I'm looking for here is numbers that multiply to give me a negative 5 and add to give me negative 4. The only numbers that multiply to give me negative 5 are either positive 1 times negative 5 or negative 1 times positive 5. And in this case, since I want numbers that add to negative 4, I'm going to use a minus 5 and a plus 1. So there it is in factored form. Now to find the roots, all I need to do is set each of those two terms equal to 0 and solve. Oops. So if I start over here on the left, all I have to do is add 5 to both sides, and I get x equals 5. Over here on the right, all I have to do is subtract 1, and I get x equals negative 1. So these would be the roots of my parabola, and then we already have the vertex, so now we have enough information that we can graph this parabola. Alright, so we have the vertex is at 2, -9, so I go from the origin here 2 units to the right and down 9 so that I'm right there. So that's my vertex. And then I'm going to go ahead and graph my roots at x equals -1 and at x equals 5. And now that we have those, we're just going to go ahead and connect it with a curve. And there's our parabola. It's not the most beautiful parabola in the world, but we're human, so we'll count it as good enough. I'm going to go ahead and do a second example with a little bit harder of a problem, but this one would be done. Alright, so for the second example, I'm going to go ahead and use the equation y equals -2x squared minus 2x plus 4. The first thing I'm going to do again is find my vertex by finding h and k. So h again is equal to -b divided by 2a. So in this case, my b is a -2. A negative becomes a positive, so I end up with positive 2 divided by 2 times the a value, which in this case is -2. So I have 2 divided by -4, which is -1/2 or -0.5. To find the k value again, all I do is I plug the original, I plug the h value into the original equation. So I'd have k equals -2 times -0.5 squared minus 2 times -0.5 plus 4, and when I evaluate that, I get positive 4.5. So that tells me that my vertex for this one is going to be at -0.5, comma 4.5. Now if I wanted to write it in vertex form, it's y equals, and I need the a value, which in this case is -2, times x minus h. Since it's minus a -0.5, I'm going to write it as x plus 0.5 squared plus k, which in this case is 4.5. So there's my vertex form. Now that we have the vertex, we need to go ahead and find the roots. So I'm going to go back to looking at the original equation of y equals -2x squared minus 2x plus 4, and I'm going to factor it a little bit differently this time. I'm going to use a slightly longer method. So if you know shortcuts, feel free to use those, but I'm going to use this long method. What I do is I put the b value up on the top of this x, and then I take the a value times the c value, which would give me -8. And so I'm looking for numbers that multiply to -8 and add to -2. So the numbers that would work for this case are -4 and +2. So now that I have those numbers, what I'm going to do is rewrite the equation by replacing the middle term, the -2x, with a -4x and a +2x. And that comes from these numbers over here that we found on the side. And then all I do is I look at the first pair and the second pair together. So I'm looking to see what I can factor out of that first pair of numbers, and they both have a negative, they both are divisible by 2, and they both have an x, so I can factor out 2x, which would leave me with an x plus 2, because when I take -2x squared divided by -2x, I'm left with the x, and when I take the -4x divided by -2x, I'm left with a +2. This plus sign that's right in front of the 2 comes down, so I have a positive sign right there. And then I look at the second group to see what do they both have in common. They both are divisible by 2, so I can factor 2 out. And when I do 2x divided by 2, I'm left with x, and 4 divided by 2 leaves me with 2. Now, since the stuff inside of those parentheses is the same, I can factor that out to the front. And when I factor that out to the front, it cancels out, and I'm left with -2x plus 2. So there I have it in factored form. And now to find my roots, again I would set each of these equal to 0, so x plus 2 equals 0, and when I solve that one I get x equals negative 2, and then negative 2x plus 2 equals 0, subtract 2 from both sides, I get negative 2x equals negative 2, divide both sides by negative 2, and I get x equals 1. So my roots are x equals 1 and x equals negative 2. So now that I have the roots and the vertex, I can go ahead and graph. Alright, so I'm going to start by graphing my vertex, which is at negative 0.5 and 4.5. So I go to the left 0.5 and up 4.5, so right there. And then my roots are at x equals negative 2, which would be right there, and x equals 1, which is right there. And then again, we just connect these points with a curve. And there's my parabola. Thanks for watching. I hope this video has been helpful. If you need to get in touch with me, I'll put my contact information on the screen. Have a great day.